and welcome to a special edition of The Closed Fist. I am Russ. This is Vinnie.
TK. Ryan, baby.
And this is Matt Taven, and this is a Closed Fist.
I got a special question for you, sir.
Oh, well,
a special question for you.
Is it techniques in the bedroom?
No.
Okay.
Although, if you want
is
to,
it how to get away with having satin sheets? Because that's a tricky one. You can't have them on the bed at all times.
You can't have them on the bed at all times. I found that out the hard way too.
Yeah.
Spike Dudley.
Yes.
He was one of your trainers?
He actually was one of all of our trainers.
Yeah, really?
Yes, we all went to the lockup, the Spike Dudley Academy in Fall River. When I first started, there was another guy in the area, his name's Ryan Waters, who teaches at that school as well,
sure.
who ended up grabbing me and saying, you gotta train with Spike. And it was the best decision I ever made. And at the same time, I didn't realize that it would affect me for the rest of my career, because that's where I met one of my tag partners, Vinnie Marseglia, for the first time.
And I started with Spike in 2010, similar story. Ryan Waters had seen me at another random show and just thought I had more potential than what I was doing, and grabbed me and said, come and train with Spike. And then pretty much, Matt was banging on my door for me to go. So I eventually gave in, went, and obviously it all worked out.
And then from there, we ended up meeting this guy as well.
Yeah, I just kind of showed up at Spike's one day. I don't know, left field. I don't have any connection to these guys.
Yeah, I actually met TK at an open house tryout that he was at.
Yeah, Vinnie was at my first ever day of pro wrestling, which is kind of neat.
And I said to Ryan, this guy's going to be pretty good. And I never knew that.
And he was right.
Yeah.
He was at my first day of pro wrestling as well.
Vinnie's like the old guard of New England wrestling. Like, if you're going to be any good, you got to meet Vinnie first.
Yeah.
So how many times did Spike quote Shakespeare to you guys or anything like that?
Wiping the blood off his head. He actually hates that part of Beyond the Mat.
I know.
I talked to him about it. He does hate that part of Beyond the Mat. Spike was fantastic to a point where I can't really put it in words, like how good Spike Dudley really is, because obviously, when you don't really know the inner workings of wrestling, I'm going into this thinking, oh, Spike Dudley, a guy from ECW.
Just got thrown around.
Yeah, exactly. And then I get there and I'm like, oh my God, this guy was smart enough to know what is going to make him money, but he also knows everything under the sun when it comes to wrestling.
It blew my mind, really.
And just his philosophy on different things with wrestling, and the way he could look at different guys and give them you're more like this, you're more like that. Right. He did wonders for the three of us, and I can't thank him enough to this day.
Now, your very first match. Tell us about the butterflies. Tell us about what was going on there.
So my first match after training with Spike, I was actually more confident, if anything, because I was wrestling a little bit here and there before I actually trained with Spike locally. On the lowest budget of shows that you can possibly think of. But exactly. Yeah, I came out and I was jumping, my head's pushing up the ceiling tiles. But after training with Spike, I actually gave me more confidence, because I actually knew what I was doing at this point. You know what I'm saying? So I was actually more excited than anything to actually, apply what I'd been taught correctly in the ring, and it just, and it came out good.
Excellent.
I kind of have a similar story, because, again, I had been wrestling a couple of months before I went to Spike's, just on lower budget places, and it was funny because. That place, I always looked at it when my first match, I looked at everyone else and I was like, I'm bigger, more athletic, and better than everyone here, I'm fine. And then after I went and trained with Spike and actually wrestled at a legit place in a great building, it was night and day, because now I'm nervous. Now thinking, I was like, I know how to wrestle, and then it's like, oh man, now there's a little bit of pressure on me to actually be able to wrestle, because I'm trained by Spike. So I was a little bit nervous, but at the same time, our other trainer, Ryan Waters, was the guy I was wrestling, so it kind of took the butterflies down a little bit. But I'm sure if I went back and watched that match, I'd think it's the absolute worst match in human history.
Oh, man. Well, I come from a little different background. So, my first match was, the first match that I had after training was, my first actual wrestle. I didn't do, backyard stuff or anything beforehand. So, It was a little different, but I came from a world where I was playing baseball in front of a lot of people. So
Okay, sure.
To now, my first match was at like a fair show in Plainfield, Mass, in front of like 24 people.
PLW.
I didn't even know what wrestling was. So I mean, it kind of took the pressure off there. You know what I mean? So no real butterflies there, I guess.
Walked in,
Yeah, it wasn't so bad. I mean, you look out and there's like 16 people looking at you. It takes the tension off, in my opinion. Yeah, all right, it isn't so bad.
Now, one of the things that's really blown up over the last 5-10 years maybe is social media. You know, Twitter, Facebook, you know, Instagram. How much has that changed the pro wrestling game?
Immensely. I remember when I, first got into training with Spike, independent wrestling, stuff like Twitter and even the Facebook. It was MySpace at the time, and that had a little bit of getting out there, talking to promoters or talking to other places through MySpace. But when it came down to it, there was still only a couple places to go to really get noticed. Nowadays, you can get noticed on your own.
Yes.
And, the three of us have all this time that we spend together. So we're always thinking of different things to put out on social media because, that's the wave of the future. That's instead of having to flip through the channels, you just go to your phone. You can literally scroll down your timeline and see a bunch of different matches, clips, whatever you want to see. So, we try to stay on top of it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Well, for me personally, it allowed me to monetize wrestling in a way. Like, especially when I got hurt pretty bad back in March, and basically through social media, didn't really financially feel much of a strain from it because of like the way I was able to connect with people and obviously selling merchandise and things like that. It's a bit of a game changer, but can also be like Matt was saying, we spend so much time trying to come up with stuff for social media that it can be
Yeah,
like
it's a
bit,
headache,
Yeah, it can be a bit of a drain. And I love connecting with people. It's a lot of fun. Don't love getting like 3 a.m. FaceTime calls on Facebook Messenger and things like that. Not super great. So I mean, it's mostly positive, but a few negatives sprinkled in there.
I mean, today alone, we're looking outside here trying to film something, and the scenery was minimal. From a
gray.
It was sad.
Yeah, from afar, it's like, oh, there's
Sad.
stuff here, and then it's like when you start shooting stuff, it's like everything just looks washed out.
But we have great food. That's why we're fat all around here.
That's why I never mind coming back to Buffalo.
Yeah, sometimes it can actually be just as hard as a wrestling in a match, dealing with the social media thing. Just putting out content that's like worthy of like looking at or reading or whatever it is, whether it's photo or writing or whatever it is. It's
Definitely
the same, pressure on the mind.
And we've recently been, upping our game as far as videos and different productions for our social media. So a lot of time spent like sitting there trying to get, we have TK's poor girlfriend lying on the ground trying to shoot up at us while we're like swinging an axe at her and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, but at the same time, it's what you need to do to stay ahead of the curve.
It's worth it, right?
I kill
definitely.
people. That's what the axe is about.
Well, thank you for joining me, guys. Great time.
Yeah.
Thank you, my man.
Thanks for having us.